What a catastrophic couple of days. There's no other way of putting it, but you're here for my unedited, almost unedited, raw opinions and views. So we're here on Secrets. Please do subscribe. So this video, as a warning, this video may be slightly politically leaning one way or another in certain aspects. There are not many people that complain about that, genuinely. But the law and politics have a very distinct overlap. So they do affect each other. So the law informs politics and vice versa. So I talk about both recently. Anyway, yes, my main channel started originally about law, and here on Secrets it originally started about martial arts. But here we go, round in circles we go. But what a catastrophic few days. We've had Labour vote down and against an amendment to a bill which would have seen an inquiry into the nationwide scandal that is the grooming gangs operating across the country, with countless thousands of girls that have suffered at that. Yes, there has been an inquiry, but there are lots of reasons that people are calling for a very specific and targeted one. If you want to learn more about the inquiry that was done, I will link a video by my good learned friend Alan Robertshaw of Art Media Law, which I helped set up. I'll link that below. It goes into much more detail about that original inquiry that was in 2022, finished in 2022, that lasted 7 years, hundreds of millions apparently that cost, and didn't really cover everything. It covered a lot, but it didn't cover everything. And there was lots of recommendations that haven't been implemented. So go figure. That's Labour's argument, and I get that. I get that argument. They say, let's do those things. Let's not have more inquiries, and I get that argument. You know, it's a case of, let's not waste time looking into everything again. Let's just do the recommendations. But at the same time, I get that there's a lot that they didn't uncover. They didn't nearly come close to looking at all of the areas that this happened and all of the time frames that this happened and exactly how this happened. And moreover, the attitude towards questions about it, I think is very telling. And for that, I covered in my main channel video, which is doing very well, by the way. We are just about, I say we, because it's all of you guys that subscribe. We are about to hit 700,000 subscribers there. So I've got that on watch at the minute. But Rupert Lowe's questions here, the bottom video, I played in full in my main channel video. Very uncomfortable questions. They don't make comfortable watching, but that's the point. This whole scandal was not a comfortable thing. It's not a comfortable conversation, but it's a necessary conversation. These questions need to be asked and they need to be answered. So Rupert Lowe has my complete and full respect for putting those questions in Parliament to the whole of Parliament for those questions to be answered, and in particular for the government to answer these questions, because no one else is asking these questions. The victims, and here's the real irony, the victims of this whole scandal want those questions to be asked. They are their questions. Who, what, where, why, how, all these things happened. And those are all Rupert Lowe's questions. But the response to that is the irony here. I will play you the response. Listen to this.
I feel disgusted by what the Honourable Gentleman has just said. Can you imagine if you're a victim or survivor listening to that? I'm sure
that's exactly the point, is it not? She says, can you imagine if you were a victim listening to that? That's the point. If this is uncomfortable, that is why these questions need to be asked. This is not a nursery. It's Parliament. I mentioned in my main channel video, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this here. When we are in court, we have to make witnesses use the precise language, the precise wording, the very words that were used, particularly where subjective feelings are involved, particularly where fear of harm is involved. Because there's a difference between simple theft and robbery, which can include the use or the fear of harm. Now, if you fear harm because someone is shouting and swearing at you, then clearly that is part of the assault, part of the attack, part of the robbery. But if they said F word you in exactly the way that I've just said it, that is not as threatening as actually saying the full word that I've abbreviated, which I'll leave abbreviated for the purposes of this video. But you can see the difference. You can imagine the difference. because that's part of the attack. So when we are in court, and law students have a very difficult job of understanding this, that when we are in court, we must have witnesses use the precise words that were used in such an attack, such a robbery or whatever, because those words matter. What they said, precisely what they said, matters. And so when here we have the MP here, I think she's MP for Rotherham, unironically, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we have an MP saying that is uncomfortable for survivors to hear, that is precisely the point, because the wording of the questions needs to be accurate. They need to be asked. There is no way of avoiding these questions, and avoiding the questions and avoiding the language is avoiding the conversation. And if you avoid the conversation, then the questions don't get asked, then the questions don't get answered, and nothing happens. And that's the whole point of this whole scandal. That's the whole reason this whole scandal blew up in the first place. When we have situations like this, which I won't play, but I'll link below. In short, and it got Elon Musk's attention again, because he's obviously been interested in the last few days for what's going on. But this was an interview by GB News. In short, a father went to save his daughter from a house where she was being assaulted. The police took him away and said he can't go back. And if he went back, he would be arrested. So, of course, he went back because he wanted to save his daughter. He was arrested. And so that is a situation here. That's precisely what happened. He was trying to save his daughter. The police turned on him instead of actually dealing with what was happening. And so, as Elon Musk here puts, fathers were arrested when trying to save their young daughters from these gangs. So we've got those situations there. We also have Rupert Lowe's posted here, Norfolk County Council has voted to cancel the May elections. Their position is now to deny my constituents of Great Yarmouth and the surrounding areas a democratic right to vote, he says. Now, all of this is because what they're saying now with Angela Rayner, they're saying, actually, we're going to shake up the whole local authority system. Therefore, some of those seats might be vacant. Therefore, actually, we don't need to have those elections in May. So, actually, we won't end up losing those seats. And so that's undemocratic, in my view, because if they know they're going to lose those seats and they cancel the elections in under the guise of changing the layout of everything, changing the landscape, I think that's wrong, frankly. At the same time, we have Keir Starmer, let me find it, a rhetoric, ironically, I can't find it now. Here it is. We have Keir Starmer saying, there will be no more, and listen to the irony of this, there will be no more Tory gimmicks or empty rhetoric. My message to the criminals who still think they can breach our borders is this: there is nowhere to hide. We're coming after you. That is literally an empty rhetoric. It is literally a phrase designed to warn people off with no actual substance, with no actual plan, with no specifics, no particularity, nothing. It is literally an empty rhetoric. But where we've got him saying that, we also have stories where this chap, who I think is still here, newspapers seem to report that he's still here. He at least was last year, 10 years or so after a deportation order. I went through that case on my main channel video. I went through the tribunal. I read through the history, which again doesn't make comfortable reading, but that's kind of the point. If you want to understand exactly what's going on here, you have to be prepared to be upset by what you read and what you hear and the answers you get, because dealing with these things is not for the light-hearted. Being a lawyer is not for the light-hearted. You go to court. I've been to court before now in family cases where the job and the role of the family court in some of those cases was to make a ruling in a 2 or 3 day trial as to which parent it was that caused the injuries to the child. One of the parents obviously is my client. In some cases, it was the child. The child was my client because the child has in certain situations where they've obviously been removed and they're in local authority care, but they've been harmed while they're in the custody of the parents. The local authority appoint a guardian and a solicitor and a barrister who goes to represent that child in court. And then the parents, and even sometimes their parents, and there's a whole crowd of lawyers turn up at court. But the court's job in some of those cases is a bit of a whodunit, literally a whodunit. The child has suffered injuries, and the job of the lawyer is to assist the court in finding the truth. So maybe it was your client that did it. And so obviously you have to read through all this stuff. You have to see photographs of this stuff. You have to go through in great detail. You cross-examine people, all the while knowing it may have been your client. It may have been the opposing lay client. Now, in that situation, you have to represent the case fiercely, fully, and to the best of your ability, because otherwise it's not a fair system. The only way that system can be fair if you fight that properly. But after all of that, this guy is reportedly still here, or at least he was last year, 10 years after a deportation order, because I read through that tribunal. It was appealed all the way through, and ultimately his appeal was dismissed. His citizenship remained revoked. His deportation order stood. But he's still here because purportedly he'd given up his Pakistani citizenship and they won't take him back. So the UK doesn't know what to do with him or where to take him. So granted, that's a difficult problem to have. But you can't, on the one hand, say, the borders are secure, we're keeping people out, etc., while there are people here that we've ordered to be deported and can't. And as Rupert Lowe again puts here, 36,800 came across the channel in 2024. How many of those have been deported? Well, many of those will not have committed crimes nearly as serious as this guy, but are just here illegally. They may be failed their asylum application, so they have no recourse to stay in the UK. They may be subject to removal, but if we haven't removed this guy with the crimes that he has committed, he's been convicted of these crimes. There's no doubt he was convicted. He's appealed against various things. His appeals have been dismissed, and he's been ordered to be deported. More hypocrisy. We have Jess Phillips. So this is a bit of a roundup, really, what I really think. We have Jess Phillips getting all upset that Elon Musk made comments against her. Now, I don't condone the comments. I don't think people should make these comments against each other, but he said that she was an R-word apologist. But then, sure enough, someone found she'd made comments pretty much the same about George Galloway. Now, granted, a lot of people don't like George Galloway. A lot of people maybe do like George Galloway. Whatever, doesn't make any difference. The fact is, she made this comment against him. Now, two wrongs don't make a right and all that. But at the same time, it is a hypocrisy that she's getting all upset about it and publicly complaining about it. Well, she was doing exactly the same thing. That was back in 2015. And it's not just one either. There was another one here. Such and such was an American and a vile R-word apologist. I think I can live with my comments, she said. So she was quite clear and quite comfortable with what she was saying. And here's another one saying pretty much the same thing. And there are many more. I haven't verified them all, but at least the first one I did verify for myself. Someone has said that she's gone around deleting some of her old comments because she's now realized that people are digging them up. But I think going against a billionaire owner of a platform on which you've made comments is probably not the right thing to do if he's got access to easy access to search your history of comments and so on. So all of which a little bit ironic, I thought. But then we get this little doozy from a day or two ago where Labour put out a video. Bearing in mind everything that's going on, Labour put this video out on TikTok, and behind it, at least through the translation, were words to do with exploitation, illicit substance abuse, and very, very vulgar words. I won't play the audio to this, but if the video itself wasn't bizarre enough, AI-generated animals pretending to be people, I think it's a desperate attempt to look cool and hip, but in such a rush to try to look cool and hip, they've not realised, at least certainly hope they didn't realise, that the lyrics translated were utterly vulgar and grotesque in light of what's currently going on. I find that absolutely staggering. So I have to say this last week or two has absolutely taken the biscuit for me. I haven't said starkly whether I am for or against Labour. I pick up on a lot of the inconsistencies because I firmly believe that the policies and everything else are detrimental to this country, lots of them, particularly the school policy with VAT, particularly the budget, and lots of things. Not everything. I'm not against everything. I do believe one of their stances with the NHS for fair pay and so on. Now, again, some people will disagree with this, and some people will say that they already have fair pay, they already get paid enough, etc. Well, I personally know people working in the NHS, very dedicated, working long hours, having studied for many years, highly qualified, and are not nearly compensated really fairly for what they do. And equally nurses. So across the spectrum, people I think are not fairly compensated for the work and the dedication that they do. That is one thing Labour supports. So absolutely support that. So there are some things I support, and there's a lot that I don't support. But on an entirely different note, you'll find me on Andy Signal's new docuseries, Meghan v Harry, the hypothetical opinion viewpoint docu-series of people within it, including me, as to what might happen in the hypothetical scenario that Meghan and Harry were to get divorced. I think it's fantastic, not just because I'm in it, not at all because I'm in it, but I think it's fantastic. The way that it's filmed, the way that it's put together, the narrative, everything, I think is excellent. Go over and sign up there and watch it. Support Andy Signal. I volunteered. I'll say now, I was not paid to do that at all. I did that because I wanted to be part of it for Andy. So go support him. It's a fantastic documentary. I'll link that in the description as well. So let me know what's been happening with you guys. And as I say, my main channel rocketing towards 700 as we speak. So do subscribe there, do subscribe here. Those are my thoughts. I think it's been a really, really rocky week or so. And I think it's going to get a lot more interesting in one sense, frightening, certainly, in another sense, over the next weeks, months, years, probably. Who knows? But thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.